Okay, there we go. Going back to the share screen. Okay. So we're still reading the introduction of Prabhupada's translation of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And we'll start with our invocation. So you can close your eyes, bring the hands to prayer, bow the head. Om Jnana Timarandasya Vinanjana Shalakaya Chaksurum Militam Yenam Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhista Stipatitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Katamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Uttapada Kamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavasa Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatha Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvatam Savadutam Parijan Satam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishkavitamsa He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Chakarpate Gopesha Gopika Kantarata Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancha Gurungai Radhe Vrindavana Vashri Vishbandhu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kapala Turubhyascha Kripasin Subhya Devacha Patitanam Pavevano Vaishnavevano Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Aveta Gadata Shri Vasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Ramo 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 Hare Hare. Okay. That destination is called Sanatana Sky, the eternal spiritual sky. In this material world, we find that everything is temporary. It comes into being, stays for some time, produces some byproducts, dwindles, and then vanishes. That is the law of the material world. Whether we use as an example this body or a piece of fruit or anything, but beyond this temporary world, there is another world of which we have information. This world consists of another nature, which is sanatana or eternal. Jiva, or the individual, is also described as sanatana, eternal, and the Lord is also described as sanatana in the 11th chapter. We have an intimate relationship with the Lord, and because we are all qualitatively one, the Sanatana Dhamma or sky, the Sanatana Supreme Personality, and the Sanatana living entities, the whole purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to revive our Sanatana occupation or Sanatana Dharma, which is the eternal occupation of the living entity. We are temporarily engaged in different activities, but all of these activities can be purified when we give up all these temporary activities and take up the activities which are prescribed by the Supreme Lord. That is called our pure life. The Supreme Lord and his transcendental abode are both Sanatana, as are the living entities, and the combined association of the Supreme Lord and the living entities in the Sanatana abode is the perfection of human life. The Lord is very kind to the living entities because they are his sons. Lord Krishna declares in Bhagavad Gita, Sarva Yanasu Aham Bija Pradapita. I am the father of all. Of course, there are all types of living entities according to their various karmas, but here the Lord claims that he is the father of all of them. Therefore, the Lord descends to reclaim all of these fallen, conditioned souls to call them back to the Sanatana eternal sky, so that the Sanatana living entities may regain their eternal Sanatana positions. The eternal association with the Lord. The Lord himself, in different incarnations, or he sends his confidential servants as sons, or his associates or acharyas to reclaim the conditioned souls. Therefore, Sanatana Dharma does not refer to any sectarian process of religion. It is the eternal function of the eternal living entities in relationship with the eternal Supreme Lord. Sanatana Dharma refers, as stated previously, to the eternal occupation of the living entity. Ramanujacharya has explained that the word Sanatana is that which has neither beginning nor end. So when we speak of Sanatana Dharma, we must take it for granted on the authority of Sri Ramanujacharya that it has neither beginning nor end. The English word for religion is a little different from Sanatana Dharma. Religion conveys the idea of faith, and faith may change. One may have faith in a particular process, and he may change this faith to adopt another. But Sanatana Dharma refers to that activity which cannot be changed. For instance, liquidity cannot be taken from water, nor can heat be taken from fire. Similarly, the eternal function of the eternal living entity cannot be taken from the living entity. Sanatana Dharma is eternally integral with the living entity. When we speak of Sanatana Dharma, therefore, we must take it for granted on the authority of Sri Ramanujacharya that it has neither beginning nor end. That which has neither end nor beginning must not be sectarian, for it cannot be limited by any boundaries. Yet those belonging to some sectarian faith will wrongly consider that Sanatana Dharma is also sectarian. But if we go deeply into the matter and consider it in the light of modern science, it is possible for us to see that the Sanatana Dharma is the business of all people of the world, nay, of all living entities of the universe. My teachers always use this quote. I think it's a Devangari quote. It's whatever I am thinking, I believe the whole world is thinking. And I always think about that with how the Westerners came to India and interpreted all of this. Like they misunderstood the statues as idol worship. They misunderstood any of this as religion, and they tried to label it. Right, the people who practice Sanatana Dharma never called themselves Hindus, but the people who came and observed them labeled it as a religion that was called Hinduism, and it was sort of like adopted by. Right, so it's kind of interesting. Non-Sanatana religious faiths may have some beginning in the annals of human history, but there's no beginning to the history of Sanatana Dharma because it remains eternally with the living entities. Insofar as the living entities are concerned, the authoritative sastras state that the living entity has neither birth nor death. In the Gita, it is stated that the living entity is never born and he never dies. He is eternal and indestructible, and he continues to live after the destruction of his temporary material body. In reference to the concept of Sanatana Dharma, we must try to understand the concept of religion from the Sanskrit root meaning of the word. Dharma refers to that which is constantly existing with a particular object. We conclude that there is heat and light along with fire. Without heat and light, there is no meaning to the word fire. Similarly, we must discover the essential part of the living being, that part which is his constant companion. That constant companion is his eternal quality, and that eternal quality is his eternal religion. When Sanatana Goswami and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about the Svarupa of every living being, the Lord replied that the Svarupa, or constitutional position of the living being, is the rendering of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If we analyze the statement of Lord Chaitanya, we can easily see that every living being is constantly engaged in rendering service to another living being. A living being serves other living beings in two capacities. By doing so, the living entity enjoys life. The lower animals serve human beings as servants serve their master. A serves B master, B serves C master, and C serves D master, and so on. Under these circumstances, we can see that one friend serves another friend. The mother serves the son, the wife serves the husband serves the wife, and so on. If we go on searching in the spirit, it will be seen that there's no exception in the society of living beings to the activity of service. The politician presents his manifesto for the public to convince them of his capacity for service. The voters therefore give the politician their valuable votes, thinking that he will render valuable service to society. The shopkeeper serves the customer, and the artisan serves the capitalist. The capitalist serves the family, and the family serves the state in the terms of the eternal capacity of the eternal living being. In this way, we can see that no living being is exempt from rendering service to other living beings, and therefore we can safely conclude that service is the constant companion of the living being, and that the rendering of service is the eternal religion of the living being. Yet man professes to belong to a particular type of faith with reference to particular time and circumstance, and thus claims to be a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or any other sect. Such designations are non-Sanatana Dharma. A Hindu may change his faith to become a Muslim, or Muslim may change his faith to become a Hindu, or a Christian may change his faith, and so on. But in all circumstances, the change of religious faith does not affect the eternal occupation of rendering service to others. The Hindu, Muslim, or Christian in all circumstances is servant of someone. Thus, to profess a particular type of sect is not to profess one's Sanatana Dharma. The rendering of service is Sanatana Dharma. Factually, we are related to the Supreme Lord in service. The Supreme Lord is the supreme enjoyer, and we living entities are his servitors. We are created for his enjoyment, and if we participate in that eternal enjoyment with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we become happy. We cannot become happy otherwise. It is not possible to be happy independently, just as no one part of the body can be happy without cooperating with the stomach. It is not possible for the living entity to be happy without rendering transcendental loving service unto the Supreme Lord. And so I always hear this, when someone's in our tradition, if you're feeling low or you're feeling upset or you have anxiety or you feel depressed, the gurus always tell you, well, then you should be rendering service. Go to the food kitchen and serve people, or go to, help someone in your life, and it'll take you out of that mood. It's almost like we reconnect to ourselves through service. It's kind of a sweet concept. In the Bhagavad Gita, worship of different demigods or rendering service to them is not approved. It is stated in the 7th chapter, 20th verse, Kames tarhita jnana prapadyante nya devata tam tam niyamam ashtaya prakritya niyata svaya. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow their particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own nature. So just to explain, it's like there's this universal energy that is everything at once, right? And then within that energy, there are sort of less profound energies that dictate the dharma of certain elements and things like that. So like Vayu is the energy that regulates the wind. Agni is the energy that regulates fire. Surya is the energy that regulates the sun. Bhumi is the energy that regulates the earth. Lakshmi is the energy that regulates abundance, right? So there are all these concepts that in certain lineages are personified so that we can understand the nature of them. And some people will offer prayers just to them to create changes. Like there are business owners in India where you'll see like statues of Lakshmi and pictures of Lakshmi all over, and they're praying to Lakshmi. But what they don't understand is that Lakshmi exists within Vishnu, because it's that eternal energy, right? So like, why are you going to go complain to the employee when you can complain to the manager is kind of the idea. So like, why are you going to render service to gain some kind of boon or benefit to the demigods, when if you render service to the divine, then all the benefits of everythingness will rain down on you, is the idea. Those whose minds are distorted by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. Here it is plainly said that those who are directed by lust worship the demigods and not the Supreme Lord Krishna. When we mention the name Krishna, we do not refer to any sectarian name. Krishna means the highest pleasure, and it is confirmed that the Supreme Lord is the reservoir or storehouse of all pleasure. We are all hankering after pleasure. Anandamayo Vyasat. All the living entities, like the Lord, are full of consciousness, and they are after happiness. The Lord is perpetually happy, and if the living entities associated with the Lord cooperate with him and take part in his association, then they also become happy. The Lord descends to this mortal world to show his pastimes in Vrindavan. which are full of happiness. When Lord Sri Krishna was in Vrindavan, his activities with his cowherd boyfriends and his damsel friends, with the inhabitants of Vrindavana and with the cows, were all full of happiness. The total population of Vrindavan knew nothing about Krishna, but Lord Krishna even discouraged his father Nanda Maharaj from worshiping the demigod Indra because he wanted to establish the fact that people need not worship any demigod. They need only worship the Supreme Lord because their ultimate goal is to return to his abode. So it's like a waste of time is what they teach in the Bhakti tradition. The abode of Lord Sri Krishna is described in the Bhagavad Gita, 15 chapter 6 verse Nata Pasyate Suryona Shashanko na Pavaka Yad Gatva na Nivartate Tadama Paramam Mama. That abode of mine is not illuminated by the sun or moon nor by electricity, and anyone who reaches it never comes back to this material world. This verse gives a description of that eternal sky. Of course, we have a material conception of the sky, and we think of it in relationship to the sun, moon, stars, and so on. But in this verse, the Lord states that in the eternal sky, there is no need for the sun, nor for the moon, nor fire any kind, because the spiritual sky is already illuminated by the Brahma Jyoti, the rays emanating from the Supreme Lord. We are trying with difficulty to reach other planets, but it is not difficult to understand the abode of the Supreme Lord. The abode is referred to as Goloka. In the Brahma Samhita, it is beautifully described. Goloka eva nivasyati. Nivasati. Ah, Akhilatma Bhuta. The Lord resides eternally in his abode in Goloka. Yet, he can be approached from this world, and to this end, the Lord comes to manifest his real form, Satchitanandana Vigraha. When he manifests this form, there is no need for our imagining what he looks like. To discourage such imaginative speculation, he descends and exhibits himself as he is, as Syama Sundara. Unfortunately, the less intelligent deride him because he comes as one of us and plays with us as a human being. But because of this, we should not consider that the Lord is one of us. It is by his potency that he presents himself in his real form before us and displays his pastimes, which are prototypes of those pastimes found in his abode. In the affluent rays of the spiritual sky, there are innumerable planets floating. The Brahma Jyoti emanates from the supreme abode, Krishna Loka, and the Anandamaya Chimaya planets, which are not material, float in those rays. The Lord says, Notad Bahasyate Suryo na Sasanko na Pavaka Yad Gatva na Nivarante Tadama Paramamama. One who can approach that spiritual sky is not required to descend again to the material sky. In the material sky, that's where we're living. Even if we approach the highest planet, Brahmaloka, what to speak of the moon, we will find the same conditions of life, namely birth, death, disease, and old age. No planet in the material universe is free from those four principles of material existence. Therefore, the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Purna Avartino Juna. The living entities are traveling from one planet to another, not by mechanical arrangement, but by a spiritual process. This is also mentioned Yanti Deva Vrata Devam Pitra Yanti Pitra Vrata. No mechanical arrangement is necessary if we want interplanetary travel. The Gita instructs Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. The moon, the sun, the higher planets are called Svargaloka. There are three different statuses of planets: higher, middle, and lower planetary systems. The Earth belongs to the middle planetary system. Bhagavad Gita informs us how to travel to the higher planetary systems, Devaloka, with a very simple formula: Yanti Deva Vrata Devan. One need only worship the particular demigod of that particular planet, and in that way go to the moon, the sun, or any of the higher planetary systems. Yet Bhagavad Gita does not advise us to go to any of the planets in the material world, because even if we go to Brahmaloka, the highest planet, through some sort of mechanical contrivance by maybe traveling for 40,000 years, and who would live that long, we will still find the material inconveniences of birth, death, disease, and old age. But one who wants to approach the supreme planet, Krishnaloka, or any of the other planets within the spiritual sky, will not meet with these material inconveniences. Amongst all the other planets in the spiritual sky, there is one supreme planet called Goloka Vrindavanam, which is the original planet and the abode of the original personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. All this information is given in the Bhagavad Gita, and we're given through its instruction information on how to leave the material world and begin a truly blissful life in the spiritual sky. In the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the real picture of the material world is given. It is said there, Urdhva mulam ada shakam asvatam prahur avyayam chamdavsi yasya parnani yastam veda sa vedavit. The Supreme Lord said, there is a banyan tree which has its roots upward and its branches downward, and the Vedic hymns are its leaves. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. Here the material world is described as a tree whose roots are upwards and branches are below. We have experience of a tree whose roots are upward. If one stands on the bank of a river or any reservoir of water, he can see that the trees reflected in the water are upside down. The branches go downward and the roots go upward. Similarly, this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. The material world is but a shadow of reality. In the shadow, there is no reality or substantiality, but from the shadow, we can understand that there is a substance and reality. In the desert, there is no water, but the mirage suggests that there is such a thing as water. In the material world, there is no water, there is no happiness, but the real water of actual happiness is there in the spiritual world. The Lord suggests that we attain the spiritual world in the following manner. Nirmana mohajita sangha dosa adhyatam ma nitya vinivritya kama dvyandver vimukha sukha dukkha samyar gachanti amuda padam avyayam tat. That padam of Yayam, or eternal kingdom, can be reached by one who is nirmana moha. What does this mean? We are after designations. Someone wants to become a son, someone wants to become a lord, someone wants to become the president or a rich man or a king or something else. As long as we are attached to these designations, we are attached to the body, because designations belong to the body, but we are not these bodies. And realizing this is the first stage in spiritual realization. We are associated with the three modes of material nature, but we must become detached through devotional service. If we're not attached to devotional service, then we cannot become detached from the modes of material nature. Designations and attachments are due to our lust and desire, our wanting to lord it over the material nature. As long as we do not give up this propensity of lording it over the material nature, there is no possibility of returning to the kingdom of the Supreme, the Sanatana Dhamma. That eternal kingdom which is never destroyed can be approached by one who is not bewildered by the attractions of false material enjoyments, who is situated in the service of the Supreme Lord. One so situated can easily approach that supreme abode. Elsewhere in the Gita is stated, avyakto ksara iti uktas tam ahu parmam gatim yam prapya na nivartante tadama paramam mama. Avyakta means unmanifested. Not even all of the material world is manifested before us. Our senses are so imperfect that we cannot even see all of the stars within this material universe. In Vedic literature, we receive much information about all the planets, and we can believe it or not believe it. All the important planets are described in Vedic literatures, especially the Srimad Bhagavatam. That book's a trip. And the spiritual world, which is beyond this material sky. It is described as avyakta, unmanifested. One should desire and hanker after that supreme kingdom, for when one attains that kingdom, he does not have to return to this material world. Next, one may raise the question of how one goes about approaching that abode of the Supreme Lord. Information on this is given in the 8th chapter. It is said there, Antakale kamam eva smarnan muktva kalevaram ya prayati samadbhavam yati nasti atra samsaya. Anyone who quits his body at the end of life, remembering me, attains immediately my nature, and there's no doubt of this. One who thinks of Krishna at the time of his death goes to Krishna. One must remember the form of Krishna. If he quits his body thinking of this form, he approaches the spiritual kingdom. Mad Bhavam refers to the supreme nature of the Supreme Being. The Supreme Being is Satchit Anandana Vigra, eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. Our present body is not Satchit Anandana. It is Asat, or not of truth, not Sat, or truth being eternal. It is not eternal, it is perishable. It is not Chit, full of knowledge, but it is full of ignorance. We have no knowledge of the spiritual kingdom, nor do we have even perfect knowledge of this material world, where there are so many things unknown to us. The body is also Nirananda. Instead of being full of bliss, it is full of misery. All of the miseries we experience in the material world arise from the body. But one who leaves this body excuse me, thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, at once attains Satchitanandana body, as is promised in the 5th verse of the 8th chapter, where Lord Krishna says he attains my nature. This brings up a lot of interesting ideas. So what the yogis teach is that at the time of death, and it's important to talk about death. We're preparing for life, but an inevitable part of life is death, right? So why aren't we all discussing it? So what the yogis teach about death is that if we're dealing with reincarnation, of being pulled into your next body, it all has to do with what you desire, right? If you're greatly, greatly, greatly attached to something, that's usually at the moment of death what's going to be flowing through your mind. And then you'll be pulled to that in your next body. So what they're saying is, if your desire at the moment of shedding your body mind vehicle, your sweater is kind of what they reference it as. It's like you're just taking off your clothes to get some new clothes, right? You might decide, I don't want any more clothes, right? If your desire is to be with that unmanifest, like with that eternal sort of energy, that's when we let go of the cycle of birth and death, and then you're pulled to that other place, which everything originated from in the first place. Does that make sense to everyone? Yeah. The process of quitting this body and getting another body in the material world is also organized. A man dies after it has been decided what form of body he will have in the next life. Higher authorities, not the living entity himself, make this decision. According to our activities in this life, we either rise or sink. This life is a preparation for the next life. If we can prepare, therefore, in this life to get promotion to the kingdom of God, then surely after quitting this material body, we will attain a spiritual body just like the Lord. I've actually been in lectures where people have asked the question, then what happens to people who commit suicide? Like, do they, get to quit their body and end up, with what I've been told is like they don't desire either. So they sort of like hang out in a limbo for a while until they're ready to re-embody. Right? They don't desire a material body anymore. That's why they're getting rid of it. But they also don't desire to be one with, Vishnu, Krishna. So they kind of hang out in like a spiritual mode for a bit of time before they reincarnate. That's just in case that was running through your head. As explained before, there are different kinds of transcendentalists: the Brahmavadi, the Paramatmavadi, and the devotee. And as mentioned in the Brahma Jyoti spiritual sky, there are innumerable spiritual planets. The number of these planets is far, far greater than all the planets of this material world. The material world has been approximated as only 1/4 of the creation. In this material segment, there are millions and billions of universes with trillions of planets and suns, stars, moons. But this whole material creation is only a fragment of the total creation. Most of the creation is in the spiritual sky. One who desires to merge into the existence of the Supreme Brahman is at once transferred to the Brahma Jyoti of the Supreme Lord and thus attains the spiritual sky. The devotee who wants to enjoy the association of the Lord enters into the Vaikuntha planets, which are innumerable, and the Supreme Lord, by his planetary expansions, as Narayana, with 4 hands and with different names like Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Govinda, etc., associates with him there. Therefore, at the end of life, the transcendentalists either think of the Brahmajyoti, Paramatma, or Supreme Personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. In all cases, they enter into the spiritual sky, but only the devotee, or he who is in personal touch with the Supreme Lord, enters into the Vaikuntha planets. The Lord further adds that of this there is no doubt. There must be believed firmly. We should not reject that you have said. Therefore, when the Lord says that at the time of death, whoever thinks of him as Brahma or Paramatma or the personality of Godhead certainly enters into the spiritual sky, there's no doubt about it. There's no question of disbelieving it. The information on how to think of the Supreme Being at the time of death is also given in the Gita. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajiti ante kalivaram tam tam ivati konteya sadatad bhava bhavita. In whatever condition one quits his present body, in his next life, he will attain that state of being without fail. Material nature is a display of one of the energies of the Supreme Lord. In the Vishnu Purana, the total energies of the Supreme Lord is Vishnu Sakti, para, prokta, etc., are delineated, the Supreme Lord has diverse and innumerable energies which are beyond our conception. However, the learned sages or liberated souls have studied these energies and have analyzed them into three parts. All of the energies are of Vishnu Shakti, or that sustaining energy. That is to say, they are different potencies of Lord Vishnu. That energy is para, transcendental. Living entities are in the mode of ignorance. At the time of death, we can either remain in an inferior energy of this material world, or we can transfer to the energy of the spiritual world. In life, we are accustomed to thinking either of the material or the spiritual energy. There are so many literatures which fill our thoughts with the material energy, newspapers, novels, etc. Our thinking, which is now absorbed in these literatures, must be transferred to the Vedic literatures. The great sages, therefore, have written so many Vedic literature, such as the Puranas, etc. The Puranas are not imaginative, they are historical records. In the Chaitanya Charamrita, there is the following verse: Maya Muga Jivar Nahi Sata Krishna Gyana Jivera Kripaya Kaila Krishna Veda Purana. The forgetful living entities or conditioned souls have forgotten their relationship with the Supreme Lord, and they are engrossed in thinking of material activities just to transfer their thinking power to the spiritual sky. Krishna has given a great number of Vedic literatures. First, he divided the Vedas into four, then he explained them in the Puranas, and for the less capable people, he wrote the Mahabharata. In the Mahabharata, there is given the Bhagavad Gita. Then all Vedic literature is summarized in the Vedanta Sutra, and for future guidance, he gave a natural commentation on the Vedanta Sutra called Srimad Bhagavatam. We must always engage our minds in reading these Vedic literatures, just as materialists engage their minds in reading newspapers, magazines, and so many materialistic literatures. We must transfer our reading to these literatures which are given to us by Vyasadeva. In that way, it will be possible for us to remember the Supreme Lord at the time of death. That is the only way suggested by the Lord. He guarantees the result, there is no doubt. Tasmat sarvesu kalesu mam anusmara yudya ka. My arpita mano buddhir mam ivasyas asamsaya. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me, and at the same time, you should continue your prescribed duty and fight. With your mind and activities always fixed on me and everything engaged in me, you will attain me without any doubt. He does not advise Arjuna to simply remember him and give up his occupation. No, the Lord never suggests anything impractical. In this material world, in order to maintain the body, one has to work. Human society is divided, according to work, into four divisions of social order. Brahmana. Oh, I have to remember this. So the Brahmana is the teachers, the spiritual people. Kshetra are the princes and warriors, like the royalty and the warriors. Vaisya, I can't remember. Vaisya is, I'm gonna look it up. That's not helpful. I feel like these are the money people, the bankers.
Amanda, we have to pause reading soon too, so we can always come back to
True.
tomorrow.
I'll stop with this sentence. Yeah, so these are the money lenders, the traders, the agriculturists, and people like the salespeople involved in commerce. And then the last one, the Sudras. So, like now it talks about, like, they call them untouchables, but it's really not that. It's like the common people who are, working for the other people. Okay. So I'll stop there. That was a lot. Thoughts? No thoughts.
I feel like it's a lot, but and Sue can probably speak to this too, but compared to the Hatha yoga practice, it's a lot, but it's like for me it's manageable information, and I agree with it. So I mean, there were some parts yesterday that we were like, what? But it's in my brain, I can wrap my head around this. A
So
little.
you're muted. Everyone's muted still.
I loved the whole part about service. I just
Oh,
thought
yeah.
that
Yeah.
made so much sense, and just it was great.
Mm.
Yeah, the service part was really, I agree, Jackie, the service part was great. And also, I can't help but, as soon as I heard that this was a story and an exciting story, I am just, I said before, this is like liking the Rolling Stones instead of the Beatles. I'm ready for the battles and the story. I am ready. I'm so ready. But, this is all good. This is all good.
It's a long introduction. I mean, it'll give context to the background of what
Yeah.
we're reading.
Mhm.
There was one part I didn't understand about when you are passing on and you're still holding on to material things, or you're of the material life. Are you coming back like that again, or can you not come back? I think if I understood it right, you don't come back once you've hit being of the spiritual, godlike.
So we're all spiritual. We're all spirit, right? That's what the yogis teach. So we are Atman, we are consciousness, we are the spirit, but we've disidentified with being just this very limited mind body vehicle. So it's all about desire, right? So if your desire is to continue having a body and a mind, you're going to continue having a body and mind.
So you'll come back.
Come back.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll keep coming back over and over and over and over again. According to all of your aversions and addictions from your past life, you will get dragged into the circumstances of your next life.
Oh, wow.
So the whole idea with karma is that we're constantly playing out, there might have been seeds planted from lifetimes ago that are coming to fruition in this lifetime. Lord, I don't know what we all did for 2020. I don't know what we all did, but those seeds are coming to fruition. So it's all like karma that we're meant to move through and learn from. And the whole idea is that like every part of this material existence is meant to sort of force us to wake up to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Get us to the point where we're just sick of the material. And we say there has to be something more, because innately you feel that there is something more. You feel there's this deep eternal truth about you. You
Mm-hmm.
feel like, when someone passes away, there's a feeling like they haven't passed away. You ever
Yeah.
get that? It's like you feel like, no, they're supposed to still be there. Something like doesn't equate with it. And with the yogis teaches that inclination is actually like speaking to a deeper truth about our existence. You got attached to the body mind. You got attached to the sweater the person was wearing, and they've shed the sweater, but it doesn't mean that they've stopped existing. It's like that whole thing that Einstein says, like energy doesn't go anywhere, it just changes forms.
Right. Yeah, the part where they
passed
talked
away.
about the bulk of the universe is not matter, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is current stuff. It's not even dark matter. It's like dark energy, and they don't know what that is and what it does, but it's like hearing something said 5,000 years ago that people say, oh yeah, that was really true.
Mhm.
Oh, good. I thought I was going to lose you guys on that part. Yeah, like stuff that I've read so long ago, and then they come out with a study and they're like, this is actually true. It just blows my mind.
Yes.
So like the majority of the universe is something that we can't access through the body mind.
Right.
We talked about that in the last reading in the Hatha Yoga, because I'm reading this like crazy book I was telling them about, but maybe it's not so crazy, but it's just when you first read it, it sounds totally bananas. And they like explain to you all the different planets and like all the different parts of the universes and all this like everything they explain to you. And it feels like you're getting all the secrets, but they say like, there are beings living in the sun, but they got a different body than you, made of fire. You can't go to the sun with this particular material body that you have. And it's like that for these other planets. You can't go to these other planets with a material body because they're not material.
Right.
It's very interesting.
Interesting. Very interesting.
All right. So any other thoughts before we pranayama. I'm probably like driving Pam crazy because it's so late. I'm sorry.
I'm not busy at work today, so I'm fine.
Okay.
I don't care, but mindful of other people's time. I love this book because of how much talk there is with the service, and it's, I mean, I didn't have to learn that in a book. I just lived life that way. And it's not just like giving back to others through volunteer work. Like you live your life through service with your job, and um earning a paycheck so you can just function in this world in a non-greedy way. But I'm
Yeah, well,
excited.
you can choose to be, the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, or you can choose to, to do some of what you do.
Yeah, and like you think sometimes people think of service as like giving away something for free, like through volunteer, but it's not. It's just, it could just be, you could get something in exchange for it. Um,
It's like action with intention.
yeah.
Yes,
And
exactly.
and it might start through volunteer work, and then you might start learning things about yourself, and then you might actually start thinking about your career and your paycheck as this idea of service, which is something that happened for me. Um, but we're starting Revolutionary Ripples, and they start next Thursday, and we're bringing nonprofit leaders in our community to come and speak to us about their mission and what they're doing in our community and ways we can give back, because I feel like this is how we're going to heal from 2020, is by giving back. And not everyone can do it financially, and that's okay, but maybe there's so many ways. And I just, from talking to people about this all the time, people don't know how to get started. So I'm excited to bring that through Revolution, because I
Yep.
think it's an important part of our yoga practice. And
Yeah, absolutely.
especially in this virtual world, probably most people didn't volunteer last year, and that's okay. But there are ways that we can give back through service in this crazy world. And I think it's the only way we're going to dig ourselves out of it.
Yeah.
So I'll post about it. And it's actually Carmen's sister. If you guys know Carmen through Rev, she took YTT a few semesters ago. She's the executive director, and I think she's the founder of this nonprofit. So we're starting with her. Anyway, so we move to breath.
Yeah, you do.
We'll do a few rounds of alternate nostril breathing. I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes. I can stay on. So if you can't and you need to drop, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll be here through the end of it, even though we're running over. Sitting up nice and tall. Bringing your right hand over to your nose. Close your right nostril with your thumb. Inhale through your left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Inhale left. Close left. Exhale right. Inhale right. Close right. Exhale left. Few more rounds on your own breath, adding retention and locks if it's in your practice. When you feel ready, you'll exhale out through the left nostril. I'm going to set the timer and you'll join us when you're ready. Bringing hands to your heart. Namaste.